Hello, and welcome to the Sensational Salary Negotiation Strategies presentation. Today, we are going to take some time to talk about how to prepare for and effectively navigate a salary negotiation conversation. Let's get started. First, let's start by defining what a negotiation is. The definition of a negotiation is a conversation with the goal of finding a mutually acceptable solution to a problem or issue between two people who both want different things. So my question to you is, what is the most important word in that definition above? There are a lot of really good words, but I would gather or argue the most important word here is the word conversation. Going into a negotiation, if you just realize that you're just having a conversation with someone about your wants and needs, and you're going to learn about their wants and needs as well, and the ultimate goal is to find something that makes you both happy, it makes this conversation a little bit less intimidating. When we're talking about negotiations in this presentation, I just wanted to give a small disclaimer that this advice is primarily intended for full-time offers. So if you are negotiating for a position that is part-time or hourly, you might not have as much wiggle room, and some of these strategies might not apply. So if a negotiation is so easy, right? It's just a conversation. Then why is it so hard? Why do so many people stress out or cringe at the idea of negotiating their salary? There are a few reasons here. One is in our culture, it's typically uncomfortable to talk about money, and that's something that's ingrained in us from a young age. You know, we're taught that it's disrespectful to ask somebody how much they make, or talk about, you know, how much money you make or how much something costs. So it is difficult to talk about money in general. Since this is an uncomfortable conversation, a lot of times job seekers will enter their first salary negotiation without any training at all in how to go about this conversation. And again, with the idea that it's just kind of uncomfortable to talk about money to begin with. So you're a little bit unprepared from the start. This is tough to a negotiation because you're trying to have a balancing act between, you know, you do want an experience and you are interested in the position, but you also want to make sure that you're offered a fair compensation. And so the stress of trying to balance, you know, the amount of money that you hope that you're paid because you're feeling a little awkward about asking for that, and the fact that you just straight up want a job really badly does make it sometimes tough to negotiate in this situation. It also makes it tough if you're unsure of your value or the external factors that might be surrounding the employer that impact the employer's ability to give you what you want. So again, if you're unsure of your value in relation to the job that you're applying for and the factors that are outside of your control that are directly impacting the negotiation, it does make it a little bit tough to kind of navigate this conversation. But don't worry, that's what we're doing this presentation for. It's to give you some strategies to use place where you're trying to understand your value and you're doing a little bit of research before you sit down at the table for this conversation to attempt to understand some of the external circumstances, your ability and the employer's ability to negotiate. So let's look at some of those factors. So this slide, we're going to talk about factors that are impacting you in the negotiation. So in this slide, I just want you to the hat of the employer for a second to try and understand where they're coming from. You information, but you want to try and use you know, your research skills and your networking to try and identify as much of this information as you can. So the first point here that we're going to go over that is impacting the employer is obviously budgets or other parameters that are placed around your role, financial parameters. So For example, if you're applying for a job as an assistant director and you will be reporting to a director, if your salary requirements are kind of in the realm of what the director is making, this employer will not be able to accommodate your needs, because then they would have to pay the director more, and that's usually just something that isn't done. So that budget parameters and constrictions are going to be affecting the employer when they come to the table. Another thing that could be affecting their ability to negotiate is how much difficulty they've had filling the position. This position that you are applying for might require a really unique skill set, and they've had a hard time filling that. So this would actually be something that would work into your favor. So if you have these skills, you're interested in the job, and they've had a hard time finding somebody that's like you, this could give you a leg up in the negotiation. Additionally, if the position has been on the market for quite some time, and it's something that is critical to this employer, to their ability to work and to produce whatever it is that they're producing, that could give you a leg up as well. So understanding the critical nature of the position that you're applying for and time sensitivity. So is it a priority of this employer to get someone into this job because it is affecting what they produce? Every day that someone is not in the job, are they losing money? If it's a position where it is really critical, then it could be a nice kind of bargaining chip for you to ask for a little bit more, knowing that the pressure's kind of on them to fill this position. That kind of goes with the fourth point as well. You know, if the job's been open for a while, they might be a little more willing to compromise in certain areas. And then the last point is the extent to which the job is viewed as a growth or development role. So again, is this a brand new position for the company? Or is this something where maybe they have an upper level person who they know is going to retire in the next couple of years, and so they made this position for someone to essentially take over that role. So it's a little bit more of a growth opportunity or a development role, and it's going to be in this company's best interest to fill that role so that they can groom somebody to take over a certain position, as opposed to just opening up a search and hiring a stranger, if you will. So these are just a few of the factors that could be impacting the employer during the negotiation. So let's take a look on the next slide about factors that impact you during a negotiation. Your skill set or qualifications are obviously going to have an impact on you during this negotiation. So how closely do your skills and qualifications align with the description or exceed what is asked for in the job description? These could be good reasons if you're asking for a little bit more money to point out when you get to that point, you know, it's stating the skill set that you have and how it exceeds the expectations could be something that's in your favor when negotiating. Your perception of the growth potential in this job. So, you know, how likely is it that if you work for this company, you'll be able to kind of grow in this company and progress through the chain of command well? The perception of your ability to take on roles that are more advanced than the one you're applying for would connect directly to how well you interview. So the employer could kind of see more potential in you than just the position that you're applying for. They could see that you could be a potential employee that works for their company for a number of years and you would be an asset to them. So if that is the case, then your idea about how long you would stay with that company and your dedication to this role could be a factor in your negotiation. Your current compensation is going to be something that you want to consider with each new position that you accept. You want to make sure that you are obviously earning more as you progress throughout your career. So that could be kind of like a hard negotiation point for you. You want to make sure that you are making more, so that's a good number to start with. Your awareness of external market norms for the position. This is especially helpful if this could be your first professional position after graduate school. You know, you want to make sure that you are aware of the range that your position typically makes in your industry and the market that exists at the time that you apply. So just going into a negotiation with those figures in mind is going to be helpful for you. Another thing that's going to be helpful for you that could impact your negotiation is thinking out. So when you accept a position, they're going to offer you an entire compensation package, which includes salary, but it also includes other benefits as well. And so your ability to maybe negotiate other factors could also be helpful to you to make the opportunity more appealing to you. So let's take a look at some of those other factors that you could negotiate beyond salary. A start date or a certain schedule, the ability to work remotely from home on certain days. If this is something that's of value to you, those are things that you can negotiate for in addition or other than salary. And the reason why I'm bringing up, points to negotiate other than salary is that, some companies, they're not trying to hardball or anything like that, but the salary that they offer is the salary that they offer, and there's no negotiating the salary. So if that's the case, there are other things that you can negotiate, and it's totally worth asking for. Remote work, a start date that's later than what they projected. These are totally appropriate to look for. In certain industries, certain employers will be able to offer a signing bonus. So this is a lump sum of money that you receive for accepting the job. You'll only receive that at the beginning. You won't receive it every year. But negotiating how much the signing bonus is and if you can have one could be something that is on the table. Also, you can also ask an employer if you can accept a certain salary and then revisit salary at another time. 6 months or 1 year after you have been working for them to see if your salary can be revisited and potentially increased. Your level of responsibility, your title, your authority, these could be areas that you could negotiate as well. Opportunities for professional development, training, conferences, any new professional, whether it's a job in a new industry, maybe you've pivoted, or it's your job like straight out of graduate school. It's helpful to have opportunities for professional development. And this is a great point to negotiate because it works in your advantage because you're learning more, which also is an advantage to the employer because now you have more knowledge in your brain to support what the company is doing. You could also ask if your employer would be able to perhaps fund certain licensure or certificates that you are required to renew every year based on your credentials and what profession you're in. For example, as a career counselor, I have 3 career counseling specific certifications that I have to renew every year. So if my employer could pay for that, that could save me a couple $100, which is nice. You can always negotiate benefits. Benefits include healthcare, time off, pension, tuition, childcare, transportation, anything that's offered in addition to salary. And lastly, depending on your role, you might be able to negotiate the ability to have company equipment. If you are an outdoor salesman, perhaps negotiating a company car, or for your company to cover your gas when you are working. A cell phone and a computer are other examples of equipment that you could negotiate to use while you're working as part of your negotiation conversation. The negotiation conversation is all about timing. So you want to watch your timing when you are planning to have this conversation. And by that, I mean, to the greatest extent possible, you want to try to have the salary conversation after the official offer has been made. This is beneficial for both you and the employer because at this time, the employer sees you, the whole picture of you. and the value that you could bring to their company. It also allows you to have a full understanding of the position that you're applying for and what you're getting yourself into, essentially. So then you'll be able to set your values and what you want to negotiate for based on the entire compensation package. If you have to disclose salary before you get to that best case scenario, you want to make sure that the figure that you're presenting is well researched. So it's not too high, not too low, and this is definitely something that you can start preparing for, before you go to the interview. So doing research on salary is something that can be woven into your interview preparation, and really should be, because like I said, you definitely want to talk about salary after the offer has been made, but if it does come up, you want to be prepared to have that conversation as well. So although it is optimal that the salary conversation come up after the offer has been made, it can also come up in the application process and during the interview. So next we're going to talk about some strategies to use should the salary conversation pop up a little bit too soon, in my opinion. Should you be asked about your salary expectations in the application process, you have a few options. So it is illegal in Pennsylvania to ask for previous salary information, but an employer is well within their rights to ask you for your salary expectations. So if asked in an application, a web application for salary information, you can try and skip it. If it prevents you from skipping, if it's a field that's required to fill out in order to progress to the next page in the application, you can attempt to write down something like negotiable if possible, or you could write number figures putting like 0 or 1 cent. If you feel comfortable disclosing a salary range at this stage, you can also feel free to do that as well. So you might want to put, since it'll probably ask you for one figure and not a range, you would want to put a number in the middle of the salary range that you are expecting. Here's a little pro tip too. If you are asked about salary in the application and you feel like you want to expand on that, or your reasoning behind whatever option you chose, you can also weave this into your cover letter, emphasizing your excitement about the opportunity and learning more about it, and that you are willing to talk about compensation and benefits fully once you get to the point where it's more appropriate to do that. Another time the salary negotiation question could come up, or the salary negotiation conversation could come up, is during the interview. So don't worry, don't freak out if this happens. It's totally fine. The human resources professional or the recruiter, hiring manager, whoever you're speaking to, they're just making sure that you're not wasting each other's time. If they can only pay you $70,000 to do this job, and at your last job you were making 85 and you were hoping for 90 at this job, there's no way that the negotiation will work for either of you. Like you guys will have a conversation and you won't be able to come to a mutually agreeable solution in that case. So again, the human resources person is just trying to make sure that you both don't go all the way through this entire rigorous, stressful interview process in order to just get to the point where there's a $20,000 gap in what they can offer and what you're expecting. So they might ask you during the interview, what you hope to make in this current role. So when this happens during the interview, you guys are on what I call the salary negotiation dot. And the goal is to get off the dot and onto another conversation as quickly as possible, but without being confrontational or disrespectful. So if you're asked and you don't want to give a figure in the interview, you could say something to the hiring manager like, I'm focused on this opportunity and total compensation. I'm confident we can agree on a fair package when the time is right. After you've delivered this answer, you can ask another question that's totally unrelated to salary to help the conversation jump off the salary dot and onto something else. For example, you could ask, what are the top 2 strengths that you're looking for someone in this position? Or, how does your team work together? What are some good examples of the way that this team has collaborated in order to produce a product? And literally anything to get you guys off the salary dot and onto something else. Let's say that they answer your question and then they bring everybody back to the salary dot. And they ask again, they answer your question and say, we're really hoping to learn here what your salary expectations are. Don't worry, because you've done your research prior to the interview, so you probably have a range in your head. So it's totally appropriate to disclose a range at this time, again, if you feel comfortable and if that's something that you want to do. And you could say something to the extent of, according to my research on salary.com, a range for this position for someone with my experience is between, blank and blank. My salary expectations are in that range. And then same deal, ask another question to get you guys off the salary dot. And hopefully they won't press any further than that to get a specific figure, in which case I would kind of wonder about their motives, but that's just me. Again, you don't want to come across as confrontational or defensive because you could be speaking to someone who is your future boss or colleague, and so you just don't want to leave that impression with them. So, oh my gosh, congratulations, you got the offer. So you've made it through the interview, you have received an offer, and you are their person. So now what? What do you do now? Strategies for after the offer. So you want to make sure that you express enthusiastic appreciation, but you resist the opportunity or the temptation to say yes on the spot. You would want to say something like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm very excited about this opportunity. When would you like my answer by? Or when do I have to give you a decision? Typically, when you do this, you'll receive your decision. You'll also want to ask for the offer in writing, and you will want to ask to speak to somebody in human resources so that you can see the entire benefits package. So now you can take a deep breath because you're their person, and it's time to prepare for your negotiation. Something that I really want to stress here is that employers expect you to negotiate something, even if it's just one thing. No one is going to think less of you or look down on you or think you're ungrateful for asking for something. They're expecting it. So let's look at how we can prepare for this conversation to figure out some things that you can ask for that they're expecting you to ask for. The first thing to do is to look internally. So when you're preparing for the negotiation, you want to ask yourself, what are the things that are most important to me based on the opportunity, the job, the position, the company, and then your needs personally, your values, your lifestyle. What are the things that are most important for you to ask for? And then you want to prioritize these asks because statistically speaking, the likelihood that you will your leverage decreases with each ask. So the thing that you want the very most, you want to ask for first, and the thing that you're kind of hoping for, you might want to ask for last. If you're having a hard time kind of thinking about, like what should I ask for? What do I value? I don't even know. You can check out this career values inventory. This is also a resource that's under our salary negotiation tab on my Widener. And this basically just gives you an idea of the things that you could ask for in a negotiation and asks you to rank them based on your own personal preference. Be aware too, your values will change with each job offer because each job is different. So, it might be more important for you to ask for salary in one situation. It might be more important for you to ask for remote work in another situation. Again, it will change based on the job opportunity that you are presented with. I've been saying this the whole entire presentation, but it's important to do market research, especially at this point. And you want to do some research online and within your network to, again, come up with a range that is appropriate for your experience level and the position that you've applied for, and then look at your values, your lifestyle, your needs, and come up with a figure within that range that you would like to ask for. Never negotiate via voicemail or email. You always want to have this conversation either in person, face-to-face, or in real time. So on the phone, via Zoom, whatever, but there needs to be somebody on the other line that can give you feedback immediately. Again, things get lost in translation and email, and it's just easier to have this conversation face-to-face so that you and the employer can arrive at a mutually beneficial solution to, I don't want to say a problem like the definition said, but to this conversation. I've been talking about doing some online research to find salary figures. Here are a few resources that you can use. I would say my favorite is payscale.com and salary.com. Glassdoor is great as well. It's opinion based, so you have to kind of take that into account. And LinkedIn is good. It's limited though. It's something that they're trying to build up at this point. So for certain industries, it has really strong salary data, and for others, it doesn't have as strong because there hasn't been enough information put into the system yet to have a nice pool to provide an average salary for. And then ONET is also a really good, it's a really good resource as well. It is a website that's created by the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, which is a department in the US government. So they've surveyed people that work in this country with certain job titles, and that's how they've come up with that salary data. It drills down really, really specifically to, certain towns in this country where, you might make a certain amount of money, and if you worked in the city, you would make another amount of money. So it has really a wealth of information on ONET. Other places where you can look for salary data is professional associations. A lot of times they have salary data from salary surveys that they've conducted over the years. Other people, as I mentioned, your network. So speaking to colleagues, mentors within the industry to kind of see if they can shed some light on, what you should ask for. Again, keeping your own values in mind as well. Sometimes the salary range for a position is posted on the job posting, so you can look there. And if you're applying to work for a nonprofit, you can check out their 990 filing. It's a public tax record, and you can see what each job within the company makes in a year, or made the previous year, I guess. Okay, so before you negotiate, imagine this slide is a little bit of a checklist. So you want to know your bottom line. So what you want and what you're willing to accept. You want to know that range. You want to know market data, market salary data. We've talked about that a lot. Your value. So when you ask for something, you want to kind of explain why you're asking for it and what the employer will be getting from your ask and from hiring you. Your priorities, again, your leverage goes down with each ask. So you want to make sure that you're asking for what you really, really want first and then go from there. And your reasoning. So this also is tied to your value. So why are you asking for this? And it shouldn't just be because I want more money, that's obvious, but you want to explain in relation to the employer's goals why you're asking for certain things. This could be an outline to use when you're having this conversation. So again, this is something that is happening face-to-face or via phone or Zoom or something like that. When you sit down to have the conversation with your future employer, you want to make sure that you confirm your interest in the position and express that there are 1, 2, or 3 parts of the offer, depending on what you want to negotiate, that you would like to talk about. Step 2, you would want to present your first request. So whatever the first ask is that you have, you'll present it there. Then you'll back it up with data and information about your value to support your request. From there, there'll be a pause. The employer will respond to you and say, yes, that sounds good, or I'll have to get back to you and ask my superior, or no, we can't do that. No matter what they say to your request, you want to express your appreciation. Even if the answer is no, you can always say, thank you so much, that's good to know, thank you for clarifying. And then you'll move on to your second request, and you'll just go to step number 2 and present your second request. The value statement and supporting kind of why you're asking for something is definitely the hardest part. So I just wanted to drill down on step 3 to give you a little bit more ammo to use when you're making these what we call value statements. So again, you're going to present your request. I would like to speak about the salary. Okay, great. Then you're going to want to present this value statement, which has 4 parts. So you want to explain your accomplishments, your skills, the results of your work, and then you want to present the ask. So in this situation, you could just say, okay, thank you so much. I'm so excited about this opportunity. There are 2 parts of this benefits package that I would like to talk about. The first one is the salary, and then you would go into your value statement. So at my previous position, I used my problem solving and program development skills to create a program that not only improved student learning outcomes, also provided professional development for our staff. I expect to experience similar results in this role as I plan the curriculum for your new career course. Would it be possible to increase my starting salary by $5,000 with these results in mind? So again, you're leading with your best foot forward. You are explaining how your work will benefit the employer as you move forward, and then you're presenting your ask. In this case, it's for $5,000 more. Some final tips for you is to know your value, decide when to be firm and when to be flexible. You don't want to present an employer with an ultimatum during the conversation, but you do want to, present what you are asking for, support what you're asking for with your value, and, stats to back up what you're asking for. And you want to do this in a very nice way. So again, no ultimatums, not confrontational. You want to embrace silence. So after you've asked for something, at that point in the outline when it's the employer's turn to talk, they will respond to you. It just might take a little bit longer than you would kind of hope. So at that time, just try your very best to just love the silence and just wait for them to say something. If possible, wait until you have the most leverage to negotiate, which again is after the offer has been made. Always ask for something. It might not be money. It might be 2 more days of vacation, or it might be remote working 2 days a month. Whatever it is that you want. If you really don't feel comfortable asking about money, or if they've offered you a salary that you're very, very happy with, ask for something else. It's totally fine. And again, like I said before, they're expecting you to ask, so do it. Do your research, and again, practice. It becomes much easier to talk about money the more that you do it. I even tell students that I'm coaching sometimes, if you feel weird talking to somebody about money, call up your car insurance company or call up your cable company and try and negotiate with them to drop your bill $50 a month. Tell them it's too much and give some reasoning why you don't want to pay that much. And just see what happens. No matter what, whether they agree with you or not, you're going to practice and you might save yourself some money in the process. So that's my final tip for you. If you would like to practice with a person, if you need anything career related, any kind of help, interview strategies, any help with a resume, a cover letter, please reach out to the Career Design and Development Office. We are located right to the right of the Pineapple House, which is on 14th Street. You can also email us at careers@widener.edu or call us to schedule an appointment at any time. Thank you so much, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day.